Hi there, my name is Danielle Owczarski and I am a watershed planner for the state of Vermont. Thank you for joining me, I guess whatever time of day it is for you, to learn about how to use the Watershed Projects Database and the Clean Water Projects Explorer. I wanted to start by giving you a background about what watershed planning is. As a watershed planner, my job is to develop tactical basin plans to identify where we have waters that are not doing so well and waters that we think are high quality. And based on that information, we then develop strategies to either protect those high quality waters or restore those waters that aren't doing so well. And as part of those strategies, in order to accomplish those, we need to identify projects to do that. So tonight we're going to talk about what those projects are, how you can find them in your specific town, and learn what projects have been completed or what projects maybe that you'd like to pursue and how to find those projects. But before we jump into the database itself, I wanted to share some examples of clean water projects. What you're looking at here is a very discrete project. So generally we start out with assessment projects, and these assessment projects help us look at a general area. So in this case, this is Lake Elmore. We're looking at the watershed of Lake Elmore. And while looking at that watershed, we can identify specific areas where we see pollution happening. So it could be runoff from houses or roads. It could be erosion on river or stream banks. And in this case, what we saw is sort of a lawn to lake situation where we wanted to increase the riparian buffer, so increase the amount of vegetation moving to the lake, so that vegetation could capture runoff from the home, but could also provide habitat for the species living in the lake. This next project is all about capturing runoff from a driveway that makes its way close to the lake. So in this case, this driveway was regraded. They put in this nice capture device here to capture the water and then send it off into the lawn so it can settle into the grass instead of making its way straight down the driveway and then washing the driveway into the lake. This project is a bioengineering project, so it's using biological materials such as plants and soil to protect shorelands. So in this case, the shoreland was getting hit with ice, was making its way to the town road. So the town was concerned about protecting its infrastructure. And generally what we do when this happens is we just dump a bunch of rock on the shoreline. In this case, we decided that's not the best way for us to deal with this. Let's see if we can do some bioengineering. So that's what you're looking at here. This project is a project to help deal with runoff from roads. And so what you see is some rocky areas. And so the rocky areas that you see kind of coming down the hillside are these small pools that capture runoff from dirt roads and help to settle out the sediment in the different basins. Then you see one final basin at the bottom here. So the sediment can settle out in there instead of making its way to a river, which is what you can't see in the picture, which is very close by. And the same river you see right here, it's the Brewster River. We also did some work here and rehabilitating the trail. So the trail basically came from the driveway and it kind of angled right towards the river. So any wash off that was coming from the area would go right into the river. And so what they did is they regraded the trail. So it kind of angled its way away from the river. And then they created this stone lined ditch so that the sediment could be captured in there during storm events. In this situation, we had a flood chute that had developed along the Wild Branch and had taken out part of the road. And there was some funding to do work on the roadside. And then we got some funding through the Clean Water Project to do work on the other side, because we knew that if we only did work on the roadside and only put rock, that this area would continue to erode and make its way into the river. So what we did is we cut back the bank here. As you can see, it's the same spot. And instead of just leaving rock on the side of the road, we took the dirt that we took from the bank on the opposite side, put it on top of the rock, and then put the stabilization fabric and planted seed. So it mimics a more natural channel that will hopefully not erode so much into the river into the future. And then this is what it looks like a few months afterwards with some grass growing in. This is another project you can see of a really small bridge that constricts floodplain areas. This is a Brewster River flowing into the Lamoille River, which is quite a large river. And so what happened is this bridge would clog up with stuff and it would back up the Brewster River actually into the town, into the village of Jeffersonville. So what they did is that they built up the river and actually created more floodplain space. So when the water got high, it would be able to make it through and it wouldn't clog up the stream. So this is what the river looked like before they installed the new bridge. So you can see how narrow the spot is for water to make its way through. And then when they put the new bridge in, you can see that they raised it up high, and now the water has access to a floodplain on the right-hand side of the photo. So those are some examples of projects, so you know what we're talking about when we go to search the projects. So let's make our way to the Watershed Projects Database. So first things first, how do you get here in the first place? So what you're going to want to do is type Vermont Clean Water Portal. And you can click on the Clean Water Portal, and there you are. So the Clean Water Portal has a bunch of different tools. One is the Clean Water Interactive Dashboard, the Clean Water Project Explorer, which we'll look at today, the Watershed Projects Database, which we'll also look at, the screening tool, which we might take a quick peek at. This tells you the different folks that you can contact if you're thinking about doing a project in a particular area, the funding opportunities tool, and the stormwater treatment practice calculator. So let's jump into the Watershed Project Database. So let's say you are a municipal official and you're interested in projects in Cambridge, Vermont, which is in the Lamoille watershed. So you can search your town, Cambridge, and let's say you're just interested in any projects that are in Cambridge. Projects that have been completed, projects that haven't been completed. So you end up with this quite large list to look at. You zoom in a little bit. So now you know, wow, there's a lot of different projects here. And that may help you think about, well, what is it that I actually want to know about these projects in this area? You know, what am I actually interested in learning about these projects? So you may just be interested in learning about what projects are proposed, because I want to actually do a project. So you go into status and click proposed and you do a search. And then all the proposed projects will pop up. So let's say instead you're really just interested in what projects have been, let's see, funded or completed in Cambridge. So you can search that. And this will give you a list of projects that have been completed or funded in Cambridge. This gives you an idea of the things that are going on in your town. Now, let's say you are a conservation commission and you are interested in actually pursuing projects. So you can go to the proposed, and then you can think, well, what kind of projects am I interested in? And there's a number of different projects in this list. So you can kind of look for the projects and see where your interest is. And so let's say your interest is in doing river planting type of projects. So you can search, and then you get a whole list of planting projects. So you got this list and you're like, well, this doesn't really tell me much. It tells me the ID, it tells me the project type, and that it hasn't been completed yet, but that's about it. So one of the things that you can do is you can go to report. If you click to report, it gives you a list of the projects and it gives you a lot more detail. So it gives you the project ID number, the name, the type of project it is, and you picked river planting, so that's all you're going to see. The status, you know it's proposed. You're not going to have to worry about this step here, but you might care about the project description. There is no grant number associated because it hasn't been funded. It gives you the town, the county, the stream geomorphic assessment reach, which probably won't be of interest to you, what basin number it is in. So number 7 is the Lamoille. Again, is probably not going to be of interest to you. It gives you the latitude and longitude, so you can have the area where it's located. If it was identified in a stream geomorphic assessment or a road erosion inventory, a stormwater master plan, these are assessments that I talked about earlier. It might have, and I give you an idea of what the priority of the project is. So say you're only interested in high priority projects, you can click this to organized by the project priority. And here are the top 3 high priorities. So maybe those are the ones you want to start with. So something that's important to know is that these projects, generally the river plantings that are identified through river corridor plans, are on private landowners' lands. So you're going to have to figure out who these folks are and reach out to them and see if they're interested before you do the project. The other thing that you can do is you can click on this little Save tab right here. Zoom in for you. And then you can choose what you want to export this list as. So if you export it to Excel, you're going to get an Excel spreadsheet that you can change. Word and PDF probably aren't going to work as well as if you did a spreadsheet type of format. And if you're really good with maps, maybe you like to do it in this format, and you can use the latitude and longitude to then project these points to see where they are on the map. But I have a better way that you can see where they're located on the map. But let's go back to the database and cover a couple other things. So you can always search a project if you're interested in a specific project that you know might be going on. You can search it by name. You can search all the projects by the basin plans. You can figure out how many projects are in the Lamoille. You can look at all the projects that have been identified through stream geomorphic assessments and just figure out ones that are high grades. But this may not be one that you're that interested in doing. So you can see here. And those are those 3 projects that we were looking at earlier that were the high priority projects. You can also look it up by grant number and project ID if you know a little bit more about it. Now you may be wondering, well, what's this button here? And I talked earlier about the screening report. So you can click on this. And the screening report, if you click on the next page, will show you where the project's located. And it'll give you some extra information. It'll tell you what sub-basin it's located in. So in this case, it's the Brewster River. It tells you the segment that it's connected to for Lake Champlain. But the more important stuff is it gives you the contact information for your basin planner, your fisheries biologist, your river scientist, and then all the regulatory staff. So if you have any questions about the project, these are the folks you can contact. So let's go to the Project Explorer now that you know how to use this. So say you're just more interested in really visually being able to see where your projects are. You want to go to the Project Explorer. Now, if you want to find the Project Explorer from the Clean Water portal, you can go back to that and click on the Clean Water Project Explorer. So what's neat about this is that it actually sets you up with a tour and teaches you how to use it. So let's just go through the tour together. So we can start here by choosing projects we want to search, and we can hover over buttons for more details. So you can see these things pop up when I hover over them to tell you what they mean. So if you're searching potential projects, those are the ones that haven't been completed. If you're looking at projects that are in progress, and then you can look at projects that have been completed. So you can add search parameters. You can select one or multiple parameters to narrow results. This is really similar to the Watershed Projects Database. And in this case, they pick Windsor County. And then you click search. And then you can click on a symbol for basic information and a link to the individual project reports. You can see all the projects that pop up here. And you can click on that project and you can see the information that it provides. And then if you click on the project report, it'll provide you even more information, similar to the information that you get in the spreadsheet. So you can go to the map key to view the map key. So you can see the projects are listed by sector type and by color. And then you can go to the results listing, and this shows all the projects found and allows you to view and download a list of the search results. So very similar to the Watershed Projects Database. But one thing that you may see here is that not all the projects, when we do this, so let's do projects in the, you're just interested in projects in the Brewster. These projects pop up. So you can see here, there's projects, 38 projects were found, but projects with map points found are 37. And in some cases, it might be you find 100 projects and only 50 projects with map points. So that generally means that if the projects are discrete projects in a particular location, you're generally going to have a map point for it. If it's an assessment for the whole town of Cambridge, then we're not going to have a map point for it. So those are the types of projects you're going to see. So you can click for the listing. It tells you the type of projects here and the numbers and where they're located. And you can export this list similar to the way that we did it earlier. Now let's look at the projects completed. So you can click that and you can search, and those projects will show up. And what's neat is you can zoom in here and you can see where those projects were completed. So you might remember that bridge project that I showed you earlier on the Brewster River, where we saw the water, floodwater pushed against the bridge. This is the area where it happened. So you can see here's the Lamoille River where the Brewster comes in, and during flooding, that water can back up as it comes down. So this really helped to make sure that that water makes its way into this floodplain here. So what's neat is you can click on these here, and then you can actually click on the project report. So I want to show you some different project reports. So in this case, this is the Cambridge Elementary Stormwater Project. So this tells you about the project, what it cost, what the source of funding was, and then it gives you before and after pictures. So in this case, it used to be that a lot of the school and the parking lot all drained to the river, which is over by the buses here. And what they did is they installed an infiltration basin so that now that water, instead of making its way to the river, drains to this infiltration basin underground, which is really easy for them to take care of. It also tells you what the results of the projects are and where they were located in the state. This is another similar project that was completed in Hardwick, and this was for a stormwater project as well. And this was done at the Hazen Union School. And this is a gravel wetland. So in this case, this water used to just flow down right into a catch basin and make its way into the river. And now that water hangs out here, deposits any of its sediment and pollutants before making its way into a new catch basin that's raised and then to the river. And that area is cleaned out periodically. Another example is a swirl separator that was installed in Hardwick as well, that treats stormwater for making its way into the Lamoille River. So this just swirls the water around and deposits any of the pollutants in one part of the catch basin, and then the cleaner water goes out in a different part of the catch basin. This is an example of a project that's in design phase. This one has actually been completed, but just so you know that some of these projects may be in design phase, so you're not going to actually see sort of before and after photo. And this is that Brewster River project that we were looking at earlier that I showed you the pictures of. So that's it, folks. That's about all I have to share with you today. Thanks very much for taking part in this webinar. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact the Watershed Planning Program or the Clean Water Initiative Program, and we can talk to you more about using these databases and how to do it in a way that is useful for you. And if you were wondering, the project behind me here, this is the one in North Wolcott, where I showed you the flood chute. So this is looking up the flood chute. So you can see how much more stable this area is. I hope to get back out to look at it later this year, 2 years after we've done the project. I hope everybody has a good evening, morning, afternoon. Thanks so much for being with me today.